Hello, my name is Matthew, and I just read The Adventure of the Devil's Foot by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. This is a part of my read along series and book club with Steve Donahue. We're reading murder mysteries in the month of March, and we're reading all of the Sherlock Holmes short stories. And I just read The Disappearance of whatever it's called, The Disappearance of Lady Frances Carfax, which I said was a disappointment on every level. I thought it was a mess, poorly executed, didn't like it. Move on right to the next one, The Adventure of the Devil's Foot, which is fantastic. For every drawback, for everything that I didn't like about the disappearance of Lady Carfax, it's really made up and shown how great Sir Arthur Conan Doyle can pull these things off. Great characters, great setting. This is set in Cornwall. We get just illustrious, beautiful descriptions of the countryside. Really interesting characters. A fantastic case to be solved, which is w- weird and horrifying, inexplicable. All the characters surrounding it are lively and feel like they're living in this little town that Sherlock and Watson are visiting. All the way to the end. This is one of the better, really great Sherlock Holmes short story, case, mystery, all of those things. Which is a welcome relief because I was not very happy with the last one. And so Sherlock and Watson are in Cornwall, and they're there on a respite. Sherlock needs to rest. He's been wearing himself down. He's physically exhausted, and needs a holiday. And so it's one of those kinds of stories where off he goes to another location to get some relaxation and immediately bumps into the most fantastical case. Um, there's an interesting feature because most of these short stories, when the fact that Watson is writing them comes up in the story, um, Sherlock is either resentful or resistant or belittling. And Watson, at the beginning, when he's talking about how he's choosing which story to write, um, again, very distinctive from the disappearance of Lady Carfax, this story feels like Watson is writing it. The disappearance of Lady Carfax did not. Um, the interesting feature is that Watson gets a telegram from Sherlock um, urging him to write this case. And so it's an older case, which again is really neat. We get this idea that Watson just has um, boxes and boxes of cases and writing material, and he's really selecting which one. And the reason that he's telling us this one is not only is it interesting, but it was interesting enough for Sherlock to urge him to write it. And so they're on this holiday. It's Sherlock and Watson just sitting there. They knock at the door. It's a vicar and someone else. His name's Middleton or something. And they're just in dire need and of help. The most outrageous, heinous, horrible, horrifying scene has just transpired, and it's to the vicar's relief that the only person that could possibly bring any shred of light to what could have happened just happens to be in Cornwall. So, what a nice coincidence. And so there's just this stoic, silent young man sitting there with the vicar. Sherlock knows, because he observes everybody, that this Middleton, I can't remember now if that was his name, which is terrible, actually witnessed the event. This Middleton character went to the vicar in a panic. Then they went to Sherlock and Watson. There's a family night. There's two brothers, the sister, and the other brother, this Middleton character, and they're just at home, or at their family's home, um, having a night, playing cards, having a conversation. They've got the fire going, they've got candles on the table, maybe drinks, and just a light, pleasant evening. Middleton has to go. He leaves, comes back the next morning. The maid had found this horrifying scene. She passed out immediately. The sister is dead in the chair. The two brothers that are still at the table, we can tell throughout how everything is arranged that when Middleton left, no one left the table. The cards are still on the table. The candles are brilliantly described as burnt down. The wax had melted down to their sockets, which I just loved. Everything has been burnt out. The sister's dead in the chair. The two brothers are also still sitting in their chairs, but they're alive and singing and laughing, big smiling grimaces on their face, in a dumb state. They're in some dementia or demented delirium. And so the maid and then finally this Middleton character are just witnessing this room. Everything has burnt down. The candles are out. Everything's still on the table. There's no struggle. And it's two brothers and a sister. The sister's dead. The two brothers are laughing outrageously and singing silly songs. And we have a vicar involved. Now I won't be able to find it, but the vicar brings up the devil being involved, or demons, or some sort of exorcism, and Sherlock really did have a great, I'm not going to be able to find it, a great response of if this is something that transpires outside of the scope of man, Sherlock would not be able to solve it. But he needs to exhaust all of the natural possibilities before moving on to something supernatural. In private, Sherlock and Watson both agree whatever happened wasn't supernatural, but he did have this really great way of responding to that. Like, let's go through all of the natural possibilities. We get a doctor who is also an African explorer and lion hunter. Great character. It was in Cornwall. This is where he retires in holidays and has his rest before he's in his working profession, or when he's on these African trips. He likes to stay in Cornwall. He was just leaving for an African adventure when he gets a telegram that this horrific scene had happened. Turns the ship around, comes back to Cornwall, confronts Sherlock and Watson. He wants to know, do they have any suspects? And he said, no, not yet. He goes, well, I just wasted my time. And he promptly leaves. Next day, or a couple days, but very, very soon afterwards, the Middleton, the other brother that didn't die, he's in his apartment. They find him. He's in his apartment, his room. They find him dead. There's a lantern, again burnt down. Someone else walks in the room, and Sherlock is figuring things out. There's some kind of poison. There's something to do with the fire. There's remnants that's in the fire, or in the glass of the lantern. There's something combustible that gets into the air, that puts a plume of fumes in the air, that's causing this delirium and eventual death. We have great things where we can look back and realize when the maid first walked into this horrifying scene, she passed out, which makes sense in this sort of in this kind of story. When she regains her senses, the first thing that she does is throws open the windows. The same thing happens in this scenario in the apartment. The person that finds it, the air is stuffy, and they get all the windows open. Sherlock inspects inspects the room and takes evidence. We get one just totally ridiculous scene, which Sherlock and Watson. Sherlock decides, and Watson agrees to, because they now have this residue of whatever poison, killing all these people and making people laughing mad. They decide to experiment on themselves and just put themselves in a closed room, have this poison, put it in a fire, and see what happens. And immediately they're both practically totally incapacitated. Watson regains his senses and in a moment of strength is able to rip Sherlock out of the room into the open air. And Sherlock and Watson both go, "That was really stupid. Why would we do that?" Which, of course, as I'm reading it, I'm thinking, this is really stupid. Why would they do that? And so there's a little bit of payoff when the characters and myself are agreeing on this ridiculousness and stupidity. That lion tamer, the lion hunter, the African explorer, the doctor, whatever his name was, he comes back into the picture, and the case starts being solved. And it's that clever, those clever examples that, not that I come to expect from these Sherlock stories, I guess I do, but also that just happens so often, and it's so satisfying when there's some cleverness on the side of Sherlock's deductive reasoning and how he solves these cases. Sometimes they are disappointing when Sherlock says, "Well, let's just burglarize the house," or something. And we find out that this brother did kill the one that went to the vicar and originally went to Sherlock and Watson. He put this poison in the fireplace and left his siblings to die for financial reasons. The African explorer was in love with the sister that died. He wasn't just going there to be alone and stoic and silent when he's not on his trips and when he's not practicing medicine. He was there because he was with the person that he loved. We hear about English law and how he had been married and they're not together anymore, but she's not dead and so he can't marry again, all that. But an explanation of why this Dr. Lion Hunter turned his ship around when he found out that the person he loves has died. The lion hunter now kills the other person with the same poison, and the whole thing started because it was the doctor's poison that he got on one of the African adventures, and the brother, he had shown it to the brother, and the brother somehow stole it, and so it's this whole wrapped up thing. Like the brother killed the sister, but he also killed her in a means that was only available by her lover and this doctor. So then he kills the brother with the same poison, and that it's that stuff called the devil's foot. It's some root that looks half human, half goat foot, like a devil's foot. And we get a confession scene that doesn't involve the police. It's this African explorer being dressed down by Sherlock. Sherlock just retelling him, telling him exactly what happened by just following all of the clues, telling him that he was actually following him, but he didn't need to follow him. He can just read all of the clues in a room and then put everything together as if he was a magician that can just invisibly be there. And it's one of those moments where they listen to it and think, you know what, we're not going to turn you in. You were about to go on your African adventure. You just lost your the one that you love. So we're not going to bring it up. Really good, really satisfying. The Adventure of the Devil's Foot really made up for the last one. I'm still just as excited to. We're at the last leg, so we're getting there. Let me know if you've read it. I thought this one was fantastic. So, yeah, thank you for watching, and take care.